Emma Hartley had never made a big deal out of birthdays. She was the kind of woman who remembered her husband's favorite cake, who picked out thoughtful gifts for friends, and who quietly made other people feel special without ever expecting much in return. Her own birthday usually came and went with a slice of cake and a polite smile. But this year, her 37th, something felt different. Maybe it was the silence between her and Daniel lately. Or maybe it was that quiet ache in her chest she didn't know how to name. They still lived in the same Vermont house with the same creaky floors and coffee mugs chipped in all the same places, but lately, it felt like she was reaching out to someone who wasn't reaching back. Daniel hadn't been cruel. Just absent. Physically there, emotionally somewhere else. He worked late more often, answered in half smiles, and had stopped asking her how her day was. It wasn't cheating. It wasn't fighting. It was worse, it was quiet. A slow, creeping kind of distance that didn't scream, it just lingered. So when he kissed her on the forehead that morning and said, "We're something nice tonight. I've planned something," she didn't know what to feel. Part of her wanted to believe maybe this was the moment he remembered who they used to be. The other part was too tired to hope. Still, she pulled on her soft blue sweater, the one he always used to say made her eyes look like the ocean, and she let herself feel curious. She told no one. She didn't post anything online or text her best friend in Massachusetts. She wanted this night, if it meant something, to belong only to them. The restaurant he chose was nothing flashy, a quiet, candlelit place tucked along a snowy road just outside town. It was the kind of place they used to save up for early in their marriage, back when a glass of wine and dessert felt like luxury. She stepped inside, her breath catching at the warmth of the room. Tables were set for two, soft music floated through the air, and snow gently dusted the windows. But Daniel wasn't there. Instead, on the table he'd reserved, was a small cream-colored card with her name written in his handwriting. She froze. Her fingers trembled as she picked it up. "Follow the music. Tonight is about everything I never said, and everything I still want to show you." Her heart stumbled in her chest. For a moment, she didn't move. Just stood there, trying to catch her breath. She felt it then, the very first flicker of something she hadn't felt in years. Longing. Not just to be seen, or touched, but to be chosen again by the man she had once believed would never let her go cold. She looked around, half expecting someone to laugh, to say it was a mistake. But the hostess smiled gently and gestured toward a door at the back of the restaurant, and Emma, still unsure if she was walking toward a gift or a goodbye, slowly stepped forward. It wasn't a bouquet or a diamond necklace waiting on the other side. It was something more dangerous, a feeling she thought had died a long time ago. Hope. Emma stepped carefully through the door the hostess had pointed to, her heels softly tapping the wooden floor as she entered a dim, intimate room set apart from the rest of the restaurant. It was quiet, almost sacred, like a moment suspended in time. A grand piano stood against one wall, its polished surface reflecting the warm amber light of a single lamp in the corner. No one else was there. No servers. No music. Just the hush of expectation hanging in the air. And then, as if on cue, the melody began. Soft, slow, and hauntingly familiar. Emma froze as the first few notes reached her ears. She knew that song. She hadn't heard it in years, but her heart remembered it before her mind could name it. It was their song. The one that played during a snowstorm in the middle of New Hampshire the night Daniel proposed. The one they danced to, barefoot and laughing, in their old apartment when they were still too broke to afford furniture but too in love to care. The sound wrapped around her like a forgotten blanket, warm and aching. Her throat tightened. She didn't know whether to smile or cry. On the piano bench, there was another envelope, his handwriting unmistakable in blue ink. Her name. Just her name. She picked it up and sat down slowly, as if her knees might give way. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Emma, I know I've been distant. I know you've felt it. I've watched the light in your eyes dim and hated myself for not reaching for you sooner. But I never stopped loving you, not once. I just got lost. In work. In pressure. In fear that I couldn't give you what you deserved. You once told me you missed being seen. That I looked at everyone and everything except you. Tonight, I want to prove I still see you. I always have. I just forgot how to look. Emma felt the sting of tears press hard behind her eyes. Her breath caught as the words soaked in, each one peeling back a layer of pain she'd carefully hidden. It wasn't just that he noticed, it was that he remembered. He remembered her words. Her feelings. The quiet moments when she had stood in front of him, vulnerable, asking for his attention with nothing more than tired eyes and soft sighs. This isn't an apology. It's a reminder. Of us. Of the love that began with 2 stubborn hearts and a cabin dream we still haven't finished. I want to take you back, not to what we had, but to what we still can become. If you'll walk with me again. If you still want to. Her fingers touched the edge of the letter like it was something sacred. This wasn't a man mailing it in with flowers and a gift card. This was a man trying to come back from wherever he'd gone. And maybe he hadn't gone far, maybe he'd just stopped talking. Maybe she'd stopped asking. Maybe love didn't die in an explosion, maybe it just faded without anyone noticing, like light at the end of the day. At the bottom of the page, one final line stood out in bold: when you're ready, open the next door. Emma stood. Her heart pounded. She didn't know what waited behind that door, but for the first time in years, she felt like someone had reached into the quiet and pulled her name from the dark. Not to blame her. Not to fix her. But to find her. And as she stepped toward the next room, she wasn't thinking about the woman she used to be, she was thinking about the man she might fall in love with all over again. Emma opened the next door with slow, cautious hands, unsure whether her heart could take much more. But as the soft light poured in and she stepped inside, something shifted in her chest, not pain this time, but a quiet gasp of recognition. It was a room filled with pieces of their life. Not grand or flashy, but personal. Honest. On one side, a wall lined with photos, their first road trip through Maine, windblown and smiling in front of a beat-up rental car, a selfie from a lazy Sunday morning on their old porch in Burlington, Emma's hair a mess, Daniel still in his flannel pajama pants, both of them grinning like kids. Tiny details surrounded her, a faded concert ticket from their first anniversary, the postcard she'd sent him from Boston when she'd gone to visit her sister, a small wooden spoon from the bakery they used to visit every Saturday. Each object was simple, almost ordinary. But together, they formed something powerful. A history. A love story, theirs, told without words. In the center of the room was a small table set for 2. With candles flickering gently, casting soft shadows that danced along the walls. Daniel was standing there, waiting, not saying anything at first, just watching her the way a man looks at something he thought he'd lost. He looked nervous, a little older, a little more vulnerable than she remembered. But there was something else in his eyes too. A kind of longing that hadn't been there in years. When Emma walked toward him, he pulled out her chair without a word, the same way he had on their first date, when he'd been too shy to flirt but too taken with her to stop smiling. When she finally sat, Daniel reached behind him and handed her a small box wrapped in simple brown paper and twine. Her hands felt warm as she opened it and found a silver pendant, Not fancy, not expensive, but delicate and shaped like a tiny door. She touched it gently, confused at first. Then he spoke, voice soft, steady, because you always opened the door, even when I shut it. You stayed. His eyes glistened, his throat tight. You stayed through my silence. Through the parts of me I didn't know how to share. You stayed when I stopped reaching for you. And tonight, I just wanted you to know. I see that now. Emma couldn't speak. Her chest felt full, with sadness, love, regret, and something new growing quietly beneath it all, hope. They sat across from each other in that quiet room, not as strangers, not as a perfect couple, but as two people who had loved deeply, failed each other quietly, and somehow still found their way back to this small, candlelit table. The dinner wasn't anything fancy: roast chicken, mashed potatoes, the kind of comfort food that felt like home. But they ate slowly, between stories, between glances, like people relearning how to talk. Emma found herself laughing at something he said about their neighbor's cat. And Daniel, for the first time in ages, reached across the table just to hold her hand, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. It wasn't a grand apology or a dramatic fix. It was something quieter, realer. A moment that said, "We're still here." And just as she started to believe the night was coming to a close, Daniel leaned back and said softly, "There's one more surprise." Emma looked up, unsure whether to smile or brace herself, and he added, with that crooked smile she hadn't seen in years, "I saved the biggest one for last." Emma looked at Daniel, her heart fluttering like it hadn't in years. His voice was calm, but she could see something behind his eyes, a kind of nervous energy that told her this wasn't just another birthday gift. There was meaning layered beneath his words, and the weight of it made her lean in, her breath catching in her throat. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a folded sheet of paper. It wasn't wrapped. No bow. Just a simple piece of paper, handed over with both hands like it was more important than anything he could say out loud. Emma opened it slowly, her fingers trembling as she read the words at the top: flight itinerary. Her eyes scanned the lines, 2 names. Hers and his. A one-way ticket. Departing next week. To where? She asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel smiled, that soft, familiar smile she hadn't seen since their early years. Wherever you want, he said. I didn't pick a return date. I thought maybe we could figure it out as we go. For a moment, she couldn't speak. Her entire world felt like it tilted, not in a way that made her dizzy, but in a way that finally made sense. He wasn't just trying to patch things up with dinner and apologies. He was offering her something much deeper, a beginning. He went on, voice low, almost afraid to say too much. I've taken a leave from work. Sold the unfinished cabin. We kept waiting for the right time, and I kept choosing everything else over us. I don't want to keep doing that. I want to give us space, real space, to breathe again. To fall in love, even if it's messy and different this time. I want to be with you. Not just beside you. His words hung in the air like a promise, and Emma felt something stir deep inside her. A kind of ache that wasn't painful, just powerful. This man, the same man who had once kissed her in the rain outside a grocery store in upstate New York, who had held her during 2 failed pregnancies, who had pulled away without realizing, was now standing in front of her, not with perfect words, but with open hands. She stood quietly, then walked around the table and slipped her arms around him, resting her head against his chest like it was the most natural thing in the world. I've been waiting for you to ask me that for years, she whispered, her voice cracking. And just like that, something inside them shifted, not fixed, but softened. Forgiven. Found. They didn't kiss like in the movies. There was no dramatic music. Just the quiet press of two people remembering what it meant to be held, not out of habit, but out of choice. Daniel reached up and tucked her hair behind her ear the way he used to, his touch gentle, careful. Then he asked, "So? Anywhere?" She pulled back, looked him straight in the eyes, and smiled. "Anywhere," she said, "as long as it's with you." That night, they danced again. Slowly. In the soft light of the room that had held their memories. Emma rested her cheek against his shoulder, her hands wrapped around his back, feeling his heartbeat under her fingers. And as the music played, their song, again, just a little slower, it didn't feel like the end of a night or even the end of a story. It felt like page one of something new. Something earned. Something true. Not perfect, but deeply, beautifully. There's asterisk. Thank you for listening to this Echo Tales story, where love finds its way home. Like, share and comment if this journey touched your heart. Would you say yes to a love that tried again?